don't you feel, the two of you pianists, with trio there's no problem because it's so individual anyway what the three instruments do. But when you play quintet, or quartet for that matter, piano quartet, that one is a little bit, I'm a little bit lonely.
I feel like the soloist with the quartet.
No, not only like a soloist, I'm a little bit lonely because the things I go after are not the same the things they go after. They want to know about bowings and about fingerings and about this and that. And I feel a little bit isolated.
I bet
Tiny
you
bit.
don't feel lonely, do
No,
you?
No.
I smell like a rose. The four of them are fighting like cats and dogs, and I'm alone. There was a film
that
of
is a
Tony.
certain
There was
loneliness too.
a film of Tony Curtis
Yeah.
where he was dressed all in white, and he walks into a huge room with a pie throwing. And pies are going, and he manages to go through the room without a speck.
And that's the way you feel.
I don't completely talk their language, even though, of course, they talk about music too. But you don't ever feel that? You don't ever feel that when you play quintet?
It's funny. I'm staring at the first page of the Brahms piano quintet, and he's forcing you to be inside each other's psyche.
Oh, definitely. No, musically speaking.
Yeah, but if you use the music, it can help you. But the music helps you.
Yeah, too far away.
Would it be different if, say, you were at Aspen and playing with four people just that somebody had
That
assembled?
too, same thing.
Same thing?
Same feel. Oh.
Same
Because
thing. Same thing. They talk the string language immediately. Immediately.
Well, so you pretend that you speak that language?
Well, I join in, yes, I try to.
We
How do you
pretend like we
feel?
talk about piano as if we know
That's right.
something.
Yeah, but do you?
No.
How difficult is it for you pianists, for God's sakes, to talk about bowings? It's up bow and down bow.
That's right.
Yeah.
Only two possibilities.
Why do you learn that easily?
Exactly. Yes. Not to mention the fact that you have this wonderful concept, as it comes. I wish I could play as it comes.
The trouble with string players, so often they mix up bowings with phrasing. They think a certain bowing will make a phrase.
We're
It
getting
doesn't.
into serious.
It doesn't.
Helps.
Sometimes it does.
Oh,
Very rarely.
But Zell actually had what he called punitive bowings that stopped you from doing something bad.
Oh,
And
defensive
there,
bowing.
and there was something to it, you know. and-
George Zell, I must say, he really knew about bowings. Do you
he
know
play?
that I, to this day, use bowings, certain bowings, in Beethoven sonatas that I got from
And he
him,
wasn't a string player.
violin piano sonatas
he
that I
never
got from him.
played, studied violin or viola?
Must have studied something.
But,
No, he never played.
Just
But he
piano.
really, really knew, and he had wonderful ideas. He really did.
In whatever
That's
form.
one of the many, many things that made Beethoven unique. Those violin sonatas are violin sonatas.
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes,
even
yes.
from the beginning. They're equal.
By the way, they're so equal that he even was partial to making sure that the piano sounded, not only sounded, but sounded good. And I don't know if you've noticed, either of you, or anybody's noticed, that in the Beethoven violin sonatas, the slow movements are always, with the exception of one, are always started by the violin and repeated, if at all, by the piano. There's only the third sonata, only the
Well,
one in
the
E
E flat
flat.
is not.
All the others.
What about the D major?
the D major started by the...
Yeah, well, that's not really a slow movement. That's a,
Well, now, wait a minute. Now
that's a theme and variations. No, theme and variations
that
is
doesn't
different.
count?
No,
Okay.
no, that's a little like the Mozart.
No, but it's
you
an
know.
important
Yeah.
point. But you know, I think he was very much aware of that supposedly the piano was
I'm sure
the
he was.
percussion and the strings, because there's a place in the slow movement of Opus 1 number 2 trio, where in the C major climax, where he has the string play two measures of pop, 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 sort of very hitting, and then the piano repeats it as legato and as beautifully as possible.
Piano and
That's
piano.
obviously his way of doing this to standards, you know. I've got to do opposite, he said.
He did so opposite that he favored the string so much that he wrote the Kreutzer Sonata to show off how wonderful the violin is by giving it the very opening that nobody can
Nobody
play.
can play it. Well, if two people try together.
So typical Beethoven.
That's a wonderful quote from Beethoven. He says to Kreutzer, "Do you think I think of your wretched violin when I'm being inspired?" But the cello sonatas in the Opus 5 are also very much more geared to being piano sonatas, really. Even though Duport was a
And
great
again,
cellist.
it's
Opus
which
69, by
which
that
were-
time, it's really a duo.
Which were published as sonatas for piano
With cello
obbligato.
That's right.
Well,
Does
the
the word obligato figure?
Cello
really?
Obligato. And
Really?
the B-flat
No
Trio,
kidding.
Opus 97,
Yeah.
is published as a piano sonata with cello, violin and cello obligato,
Obligato.
if you please.
The Kreutzer Sonata is the same thing. Sonata for piano forte
Oh, yeah.
with violin obbligato. But then he adds, with violin obbligato, then he adds in the form of a double concerto.
That's
But
just,
why did Beethoven wait 4 full cello sonatas before writing a really full-length slow movement? He must have thought about that, Claude, because
Yes.
And-
I have my own view.
Did
that-
And
he have a
what
good-
is
did
it?
he have a good
What-
instrumentalist?
that he sensed the innate, mellow, sort of romantic quality of the cello sonority and was a revolutionary enough to not want that to happen as a full-fledged movement. He was writing music already by the middle of his life that was going beyond the Romantic era. It was going into contemporary music. So by the time he does write a full-length slow movement for the cello, which is very romantically conceived, he writes as an antidote to that saccharin, the fugue, which is almost Schoenbergian in its diatribe. It's extraordinary.
Cello
That's
was
my
all-
own.
Aren't the first movements of both the F major and G minor slow movements?
Yes, but they function as introductions to
Yeah,
the
yes.
main allegro
Well,
movement.
yeah.
He gave you the triple concerto.
yeah, he gave you the
Yes,
Yes.
that's wonderful. We didn't talk about that. We should have, because that's a maligned. A lot of critics, particularly, disapprove and saying, he failed in his attempt and he tried too hard to get too much, and they know what too much is, and Beethoven didn't know. And this stupendous, giant, gigantesque piece, which, at least for me, at the opening tutti, I get the kind of goosebumps that I feel in the Emperor Concerto. The opening tutti of the Emperor. I get that sense of something enormous,
gigantic.
enormously great happening. And not only that, the whole piece is a great work that's very difficult to play, and too many people play it that shouldn't play it.
Well, very often it's played by 3 soloists who got together the night before. That's of course.
Or section leaders of an orchestra that get together the night before and
The
miss-
getting together the night before is not exactly.
No, the demands of it are Olympian.
Olympian.
It's not just good to be an athlete. You have to.
for all the instruments. Cello is the worst served,
most,
but as you know, the piano part is not. It's very, very tricky. Well, and the same thing with the violin. Maybe the violin is the least.
The first time we had a conversation, you screamed at me because I had the chutzpah to say that that's not as difficult for the piano. And you grabbed me, it was on the Queen Elizabeth II. You grabbed me by the arm, led me to the piano, and it went da-da-da-da-da-da. So you mean that's not difficult? And I had to admit, you're right.
I think, well, my theory is everything is exactly equally difficult.
I quote you all the
If
time.
it isn't one difficulty,
All the
it's another
time.
difficulty.
Right.
And
If I
the
heard your
triple
mom say it
concerto has
first.
many, many, many difficulties. As you well know, we've played it together, and we've played it together once too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten it. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, isn't it the first time that you and I played it was with
No
Claude?
kidding. Really?
Before we
Yeah.
had the trio. That's right.
You warmed them up?
I
Thank you.
warmed them
That's
up.
right.
That's
Thank you.
right.
That's
Are they
right.
warm?
Yes.
We're hot.
Well,
And you were a little. I
That was the
remember
first
this.
time
You
I
were
heard
you
it,
were
and I
13 years
fell
old.
in love.
We three played it together.
The
Yeah,
three
of
of
course.
us. But the
Yeah.
first time I heard it was with you three. Became addicted to that piece.